Upper Echelon is brought to you by Deloitte. For innovative thinking and thorough strategic planning, turn to Deloitte. In our Upper Echelon this week, we have Yolanda Cuba, currently Executive Director for Strategy and Business Support at SAB, among other things, but probably best known for making it onto international lists for the youngest CEOs globally when she was appointed CEO of then Chairman Tokyo Sexwale's Mvela Panda Group at the age of 29. At that time, a lot of popular references were made to Sexwale's The Apprentice show. Yolanda, you stepped down at Mvela Panda Group in 2010, but you have definitely not been idle since then. As I have it, you are on the boards of Roynet, Steinhoff, APSA, and World of Avatar, where you're chairperson. What is currently taking up the bulk of your time?
Definitely SAB. I decided that I want to be on a learning journey where I build on the foundation that I had at Mvela Panda, and it's been great to be there. Every day there's something new to learn.
Oh, that's fantastic. Now, could we back up a little? At the time of your appointment as CEO of Mvela Panda Group in 2007, a lot was reported on your previous work experience and whether it was sufficient for the position. And you have been quoted as saying that it is not your job to dispel fears about your age. Now, clearly, with the success achieved at Mvela, those detractors had to be silenced.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, everything that I do, success, whether I fail or not, is a byproduct of just the effort that I put into my work. And I know what I know what I don't know, and I know where to get help when I need it. So I went to the ABC of actually managing a business and being a leader. And literally, I taught myself how to actually do that. And I had great support as well. I had great support from Tokyo, from Mickey, from Stephen, from Mark. So I had great people around me that actually believed in what we were doing.
Okay. Going back even further, before joining Mvela Panda, you studied at UCT and the University of KwaZulu-Natal, when you did your honors in commerce and then articled at Fisher Hoffman. In between that and Mvela Panda, you worked for a wide range of companies, but what I want to focus on is before university. Everybody always wants to know where a leader comes from. So you were born in Gugulethu, but have stated that you lived a semi-nomadic life with your mother, twin sister, and two brothers. Tell us a little bit about that, and when did you realize that business was going to be your professional passion?
I mean, to start off with, as you said, we were born in Gugulethu. However, my mom actually moved to Johannesburg. And so we also had trekked to Johannesburg. And then in the 80s, with all the riots that were happening in Johannesburg, we trekked back to Cape Town. And then back to Joburg again as my mother moved up and down. And we finally settled in Cape Town in the late 80s, early 90s.
All right. Now, I know your mother was a lawyer. Never had any aspirations to actually become a lawyer yourself?
Absolutely none. If there's something we're clear on between my twin sister and I, is that we'll never be lawyers.
All right.
I guess we saw how much time it took of my mother's time, because she was a criminal lawyer as well. People will come to the house to actually consult with her as well after hours and things like that. And I guess, as a child, that's not what you want, so we were pretty determined that was not what we were going to go for.
And when did this epiphany come that you were going to be involved in business?
Well, our family, extended family, my mother's side of the family were actually quite involved in business in Cape Town. They had butcheries, they had shops and things like that. And we were always involved in that. So commerce was part of us growing up. So I don't think there was a day where I woke up and I said, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. However, I mean, when we were about standard 3, my 2 or 3, my uncle, who used to work for the then Anderson Consulting, actually said to us, please code this onto the computer, which was the stock in the store and all this kind of stuff. And we thought, wow, there's a way to make business cool. And also, I mean, in the 80s, not a lot of people were exposed to like that kind of computing power and things like that. We're used to our games and things like that, really not computing, and that was cool. So I guess that was one of the things that actually got us more interested in business.
Right, but you were first qualified as a chartered accountant.
Yes.
Was that something you were really interested in, or just a stepping stone?
For me, it was a stepping stone. I actually had a discussion earlier in my life when I finished my first degree, which was a BCom Stats, with someone, and they said, okay, if you want to be taken seriously, it's better that you go out there and actually have a CA degree. which is something that I was always considering. I actually wanted to do something more finance orientated. And yeah, so I just decided this is what I need. And I used that as a stepping stone, and I've not looked back since.
Because you were saying, you know, something that made business cool was that computing power, and some people would argue that chartered accountancy is not exactly cool, but I guess you made it cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a creative person, and my favorite pastime is architecture and interior decorating. So I've got a creative streak, and I've got the grey numbers kind of stuff.
So let's talk about being a role model. South Africa's youth definitely needs role models, and you were recognized as a top empowered businesswoman of the year by top companies in 2006. Also received a Youth Excellence Award by the Black Management Forum in 2007. And I mean, I can go on and on. Internationally, Forbes magazine named you as one of the top 20 youngest power women in Africa. All great accolades. But how important is recognition actually to you?
I think, I'm not sure what it comes with. Every time you get recognized, I'm not sure if it gives you more money, it gives you any saying or standing within your family. It gives you none of the things that are really important to you. However, what I've grown to accept that it's important to other people. Other people like to be associated with someone who's recognized, and for doing something with it, or being recognized as someone who's extraordinary in some way. And unfortunately, or fortunately, I always say, I wasn't a soccer player when I started off, so I didn't sign up to be someone that people look up to in some way. And I've slowly had to learn that being a role model is not your choice. It's other people's choice. And there are certain things that you have to accept, and gracefully actually accept some of the recognition that you get given, because it does mean something to someone. And it's something that could change someone's life too. So that's where I look at it from.
And does, that recognition and being a role model come with more responsibility, or do you actually live your life the way you would have, even if there wasn't media scrutiny or people looking up to you involved?
It definitely does change some of the choices you make. About 4 years ago, my husband and I went out to a club, and there was this group of young people next to us, and I actually went and got some drinks, or I can't remember. I went, and these guys just rushed to my husband as I left, and they asked, "Is that Yolanda Cuba?" And my husband said yes, and they were all shocked that I actually dance. So there are sort of moments of lightness in it, but there definitely are choices that you actually make. I started being serious in business at about 24, 25, when I was made deputy CEO at Mvela. So there were certain choices then I had to make at that point. When all my friends were sort of playing and running around and going wild, I was busy being serious at home and actually focusing on the work that I needed to do.
So talking about your time at Mvela, when you're 29 and the CEO of a powerhouse of a company with annual revenue in the billions, what further aspirations are actually left for the future?
I think the time that I had in Mvela and just being a CEO there, it came first as a surprise to me. I think I spent the first year actually getting used to the idea. And then after that, I actually only internalized it and said, look, I have to get something done here. I have to actually lead. And, I guess you actually you always have other aspirations beyond just your work environment, and Vela was first and foremost the work environment, but that provided just the comfort of a family environment. It was very sort of what I'll call almost paternalistic and maternalistic at the same time, because it really provided a cushion where you could actually work from. Lots of risks, but a lot of cushion as well in terms of support. So what further aspirations do I have? Many. I'd like to make a difference in South Africa. The one thing that actually appeals to me is being able to actually have an impact and being relevant in any environment that I come into. So that will never go away. There's no amount of revenue or turnover or market capitalization that can actually quantify relevance and impact. So wherever I can make that, I can have that kind of impact. I'll be there.
And I like that relevance and impact.
Mm.
Your current commitments are quite varied. So, is it a case of a wide interest in different industries, or do you actually feel that you can have that relevance and impact in any sector that you get involved in?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, a lot of the companies there, I didn't choose myself. I actually joined when I was still at Mvela. But what was gratifying for me is that when I left Mvela and all the agreements fell away and things like that, all those companies actually made a choice to actually have me on the board. In fact, at ABSA, I moved from a non-independent to an independent board member, and the board actually made the choice to keep me there. So, and I don't think they would have done that if they thought I didn't add value to the business. But in every environment where I go into, I definitely want to be relevant. So I actually make it a point that I carve out a space for me where I would be relevant. It doesn't matter whether it's the world of Avatar, where we're talking mix it, we're talking to do, and all those kind of stuff, which are very technology kind of intensive, or we're at ABSA, where we're talking finance, or at Star and Half, or at Rynet, where we're talking about varied stuff.
All right. You had a clear strategy for your role as CEO of Mvela Panda Group, also quoting you from a previous interview that you at least had to conclude 2 empowerment transactions every year. How important is it to have a clear view of what you want to achieve in any new role that you take on?
I think it's actually quite important. However, I mean, the big thing is that you just shouldn't be actually rigid around it. You should have a strategy overall that actually directs the effort and the resources that you have. However, when the environment changes, you should be willing to adapt to it and actually make the changes or the tweaks that are required within that. So going anywhere without a plan is just planning to fail, literally.
Let's talk about balancing work and personal life. It's Women's Month, so it's always a question that I have to ask when I speak to a successful woman. Is it possible to achieve work and personal life balance, or are you married to your job?
I think you live in cycles. There are times when your job actually just takes the upper hand. There are times when your family takes the upper hand. And you have to accept that there are times like that. I mean, there are people that do, but for me personally, I've never actually said I've achieved the absolute equilibrium. I think we live our life in averages. As long as on average, I'm looking okay, I'm looking after my family, I'm taking time off, and I'm working and actually taking out the right kind of outputs for my work environment, and I'm driving results. I feel like I'm actually fine.
So, how do you relax? You mentioned that you're interested in architecture. I've read that you're a closet interior designer. So, what hobbies do you have? What do you do to relax?
Those are exactly my hobbies. That's literally what I enjoy. I'm happy to go around decorating other people's houses, family, you name it. I'm always rearranging people's furniture. Some of my family members actually hate it, but I still do it anyway. I also enjoy dancing. I was a ballroom dancer for all my all my schooling life. I started at 8 years old and I stopped when I was in matric. And yeah, so those are the things that I really enjoy. And I enjoy movies as well. Yeah.
A bit of escapism.
Yeah, and I mean, whatever Cinderella movies out there, believe you me, I've watched it.
All right. Is there more studying in your future, or is practical application more your cup of tea?
Well, I think at some point I'd like to study. But at this point in time, I feel like the best learning is through practical application, is literally action learning. And that's what I'm doing at SEB.
So, how do you feel, in your opinion, is South Africa faring with women empowerment, the empowerment of the women in our country?
I think we're starting to make inroads in terms of empowerment. However, we're still a long way from where we need to be. In terms of key industries that drive the economy, we definitely needs a lot more. I mean, we tend to, as women, to be in support roles, and I don't think that's sufficient. I think as a country, we actually limiting our mental capability by actually restricting the number of women in key positions across the spectrum of the business world.
Individually, what can we do to promote it?
I think if you're a woman, you have some form of obligation, literally, to actually promote another woman. Because if we're not doing it ourselves, how can we expect men to be doing it? And also it should never be seen as a favor. It should be seen as I'm promoting this person because they're competent to actually do it. There's always fear that, I speak to a lot of women but I can't do this. I can't go that far and all this kind of stuff. And I always tell people that whether you're a man or a woman, we're all promoted to positions of incompetence. You actually get the competence once you get there, but you don't get competent at the next role while you're actually in another one. So there is a lot of fear factor that we have to overcome as women and actually encourage each other to actually take on the bigger roles. At the same time, we have to respect the women that don't want to move up, because there are women that are making those choices, and we must just respect it. It's not they are less competent or this. It's just that this is the choice that they want to make, and we must respect that.
Now, I know it's not polite to actually mention a lady's age, so let's just say that you're in your mid-30s. Is it always going to be business, 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 or will you branch out into something different or something else along the way?
I guess what I know is business, so I'll be business. I'll be business for a while, but at some point in my career, or in my working life, I'd love to actually make a difference within the entire South African landscape, whether that be in government or in another sort of social environment. I would love to do that too.
All right, making a difference in a different social environment. Let's talk about the Cuba Mki Foundation.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, it's a foundation that we started a couple of years ago. It was my husband and I. And it really was to promote education. The whole thing around it's promoting education. Because I'm a CA and I know the challenge that women CAs have, and especially black, just in general, CAs have. What we did is we used to give laptops to students from WITS who actually made it from third year to fourth year into their studies, because that's the big jump in trying to be a CA. You need more encouragement when you pass your third year. And we actually giving out bursaries as well to different fields of study. We've got like 3 people that we actually sponsoring currently at different universities for BSc to commerce and things like that. And it's just trying to make a difference, but within the education space.
Yolanda Cuba in our Upper Echelon this week. Upper Echelon was brought to you by Deloitte. For innovative thinking and thorough strategic planning, turn to Deloitte.